What's up, guys? I'm Crystal Lee Naomi, aka Jasmine Borders on Tyler Perry's Sisters. Be sure to subscribe to the Haves and the Have-Nots review for not only reviews on the Haves and the Have-Nots, but also on Sisters. And while you're at it, give your girl a follow on Instagram at Crystal Lee Naomi. And I'll see you every Wednesday at 9, only on BET.
All right, Sisters fans, hope everybody's doing well. I mentioned this briefly in my episode review because it's kind of funny that this week my reviews for Have and Have Nots and Sisters really weren't super long. I mean, it's not uncommon for those reviews to go anywhere between like 27 to 40-ish minutes, depending on how much of a discussion is really worth having. But, you know, both shows were pretty straightforward, to the point, and kind of boring because when you think about it, there was a lot of talk, but not a lot of action, you know? But when it comes to Sisters, one of my favorite moments, aside from the scenes between, well, no, honestly, when I think back to the episode, my favorite scenes probably were the filler scenes between Zach and Preston over at Danny's apartment. You know, just the fact that these two have really just been getting along in the few times we've seen them interact. It's just the fact that Danny's, aggressive personality clashes with Zach's chill demeanor, but yet you have somebody like Preston who is just, a nice guy who's just happy to be included. So to actually have these two just sit down and, for lack of a better phrase, have a conversation where they're both kind of talking about, their dating lives. I mean, when you think about it, the only times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you think about it, the only times we've really had two males, speaking about what's going on in their lives is just Calvin and Maurice. And for the most part, it's really Calvin whining about the whole Sabrina thing, and Maurice telling him to either get over it and move on, or do something different and spontaneous, or basically coming on to Calvin himself, and Calvin just walks away because he can't, I ain't here for this. But to actually have two characters who we rarely see interact talk about what's going on is interesting. Not to mention the fact that, Preston is approaching this conversation based on the little bit of perspective he has from what Danny vents to him about in regards to Karen and Zach, and it's like, y'all sure you're finished? I mean, Danny always says you two hook up and get back together. And then, just the fact that Zach is like, man, you can cook, this is great. They talk about R and the B music and things of that nature. So it was just cool to see these characters interact with each other, because more often than not, we only see them interacting with female characters, not other male characters. And I think I even tweeted this out, like, I would fully support like a series just focusing on the bromance between Preston and Zach, because they come from two different worlds. Not to mention they're interacting with the same women to an extent, like Zach and Danny are friends and they work together, and there was kind of a will they won't they back in season 1, but Karen is who Danny pushes Zach to be with, and Zach was giving kind of like brotherly advice to Danny of how to deal with Preston in regards to women being confusing with their signals, and just be straightforward and honest with them. So I really enjoyed seeing the dynamic between these two. And I mean, to actually see Zach having kind of like a playful conversation with somebody who has insight instead of criticism was kind of interesting, to say the least. And I really liked it. He loves the guys cooking, and I really felt like, a Corey and Sean, or, Bucky and Sam from Falcon and Winter Soldier, Corey and Sean from Boy Meets World, and the list goes on. There's so many examples of, heterosexual men having just a bromance. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, we ship them together. No, it's just two guys hanging out, getting to know each other. And I like how Tyler Perry wrote the scene, because I feel like it did a great job of kind of demonstrating the difference between how women gossip and how men gossip. When it's women, when it's the Sisters crew together, which is kind of like maybe once or twice a season, when we see all four women together and they're dishing about the events of what's going on in their lives. And the thing about it is, not everybody knows everything. Like, Karen might say something that Danny knew but Sabrina didn't, or Andy might say something that Sabrina didn't know about but Karen did. And there are just moments like that where we spend 10 to 15 minutes of just them just dishing everything out, whereas in the guy's perspective, it's like, hey, well, Danny said this about you and Karen, or Zach will be like, well, Danny talks about you at work sometimes. Cool. You wanted some steak? So I just like how it was just so chill and relaxed. So I mean, to be honest, they could have like a Disney Plus esque, or in this case a BET Plus series, where it's just the two dudes hanging out for like a few episodes. We don't need a full on series, but I just found it funny that I enjoyed just the back and forth banter between these two more than I did the main storyline of the episode, which was Andy and her debating whether or not she could marry, that kind of thing. But yeah, I would be interested to see, like, I hope this doesn't happen, but let's say if Danny breaks up or pretty much, cuts things off with Preston. Imagine Preston and Zach as roommates, because let's say hypothetically Zach and Fatima do get back together. I still would prefer if Zach gets his own place. That way, if anything happens, he has security in his own home. He doesn't have to worry about being kicked out by anybody. So let's say Preston and Danny don't work out. Preston was staying with Danny. Let's say that kind of like Maurice and Calvin are roommates. Let's say Zach and Preston are roommates. I think that would be a very, very, very cool idea. Just my opinion, kind of like the whole Bonnet episode is just my thoughts on things. I feel the same way about Zach and Preston. So let's say if Zach hits it big with that stock tip, he and Preston can, get their own spot together and hang out, talk about women, that kind of thing. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. Leave your thoughts below in the comment section. If you want to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal or Cash App. And with that being said, I'll talk to you soon.